Welcome to Drum and Drummer, a podcast focused on drums, drumming and drummers. I'm George Pickering and that's Ben Winty, and we are both professional drummers in this business we call music. So stick around and join us as we pass the time whilst trying to stay in time.
What are you doing here, Neil? Bonjour.
Good.
Yeah?
That's good. Yeah.
Ça va?
Because ça va bien. Très bien.
Très bien.
Vous? Is that right?
Oui. Je suis très bien, monsieur.
Très bien. J'ai joué au foot.
La piscine. La bibliothèque.
That's about all I got.
But you're in France, George.
I'm in France.
That was our subtle nod to your...
Yep. We've done it again. Forgot to do intro and outro.
Yeah. So, and you're on holiday.
Yeah. On holiday to a point.
To a point.
It's dog sitting. Elfie's mum's dogs.
And how's that going?
Well, yesterday we lost 2 of them. So let me run you through. I'll try and get through the story quick because we do have a guest, but this was too good not to share. So it's 3 dogs, Dot, Gloria, and then Cromitty. He's a puppy, but he's a big lad. Elfie took the dogs for a walk yesterday, and they live in the middle of nowhere, and it's the woods. And Gloria and Cromitty just ran off. And they do that. They'll run off, you call them,
dogs,
they come back. They're
free
dogs.
Spirits. Free
it's
spirits.
The woods. You don't need leads. It's the middle of nowhere. But anyway, Elfie came back. She was like, 2 of the dogs haven't come back. And Gloria does it a lot, apparently, but Cromitty hasn't done it much. And we were a bit, worried. And we were like, I'm sure they'll come back in a bit. Anyway, they didn't come back for a few hours. So we took the car out. We've got a rental car, which is a whole other story, driving on a different side of the road and a different side of the car. Anyway, took the car out, looked for them, couldn't find them. Went for a walk, couldn't find them. Took the car out again later. And it's getting to their dinner time. It's like 5 p.m. Still haven't found them. We were like, fuck. But we remembered on the car drive that we went past the gate and someone had written the word dog. We were like, that's weird. But anyway, then Elfie's mum texted us about 7 p.m. They still haven't come back and said, oh, by the way.
Does she know this point at the dog
sitting? Yeah.
Right.
We told Elfie told her mum about 5.
How's the dog sitting going?
Yeah.
You're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
If you're expecting all 3 dogs to be at home and safe and sound, you're going to be gutted.
Yeah. We got one.
We got one.
We got one. But,
how much do you like the dogs?
Yeah, exactly.
I got some news.
Yeah. As a percentage, we've got 33% of the dogs. So anyway, the mum said, oh, well, sometimes the dogs run off to this closest neighbor. It's like 15-minute walk. And the neighbor will just write dog on the gate. We're like, oh my God, that was it. So we drove, got in the car, drove.
You'd think
and
they'd make a phone call or something.
Well, this is honestly, it's so remote out here. I don't even know if
you look like you're in some sort of late 90s, noughties horror film.
Yeah, it does feel like that. Well, I'll say this.
But they wouldn't wear that jacket.
No, quick interject to the story. There was a parked car as I was walking yesterday, just parked in the middle of the road. And I instantly thought, well, I'm going to get shot because there was just someone sat in it.
Or an axe.
Moving.
Probably an axe in the woods.
Anything. Yeah.
There's a good excuse to have an axe in the woods.
This is it.
Trees.
Anyway, so we go out to this house.
2,000 trees. Sorry.
That has dog written on the gate. And we went up and we were like, we know Gloria will be there, but we don't know if Cromitty will be there. So Elfie calls them both and they both come running up. We're like, oh, thank fuck for that. So anyway, we found the dogs 9 hours after their walk in the morning, and they're all back now. But we're here for another 2 days, and it's leads on the whole time. But that's been France, so all's well, all good.
Right, this week's guest,
Neil
Thomas Elliott. He's been mentioned on this podcast
a lot,
a fuck ton.
Yeah,
too much is the correct expression. Yep, too much. So we thought, let's get him on.
Yep.
Neil, of course, is, he's
Your work wife.
work wife. We're joined at the hip, basically. Function bands, studio, original bands. We've just been solid together. And you've known Neil for a good while as well, through youth music and into the function band world as well. So Neil is a producer, mixing engineer, recording engineer, function band performer, and a function band manager. And occasionally does some youth music work as well. An all-round good egg.
Good egg, yeah.
Hard-working, talented, good egg.
Yeah.
It's weird being nice about him. I feel like I should be a bit more cutting, but well,
that's how it works. If us three are together, we're all horrible to each other. But if it's just the two of us, me and Neil, great. Me and you, great, to a point. But if it's just us, if it's us three, something we didn't mention, I have to say, that I wish we mentioned on the podcast, was 2018, 2019, the three of us every single day played darts. Pretty much every single day.
We got really into darts. It got to the point it was distracting from work.
Yeah.
I'll do the mix tomorrow. I'll do the mix tomorrow because we can throw a few darts at the board.
This is it. Long dart games, hour long at least.
We had the app and
we got
everything.
really good.
We had loads of we had our own vocabulary. Yeah. I was singing a turning pro at one point.
You were.
And then my life fell apart, so that got put on the back burner. But let's go into it then.
Let's do it.
Here's Neil Thomas Elliott. Neil Elliott.
Hello.
Welcome. Welcome. Welcome.
Do you want a response?
No, I don't know. Maybe.
Left a gap for a response.
Yeah, left a gap. You didn't fill it. About time we had you on the show.
We could explain what he means to both of us.
Okay, do you want to start, George?
Yeah, okay. Everything.
Look at that.
Nice.
George would not exist without Neil.
Yeah.
And me?
Instantly. How do I make this about myself?
Yeah, I got to take a little bit of the credit.
Yeah. Neil's groomed me since the age of 16.
Well, yeah. I don't know. I think younger.
Maybe younger.
I think younger. Well, you used to go to a rock school.
I used to, but I don't think you ran it. It was
but I think I covered. So Simon, who used to run it, got me in to cover it, and I'm pretty certain you were there.
Yeah, my first real memory of you was when we recorded with my old band, The Underdogs, with you.
Yeah.
At Havant Arts Centre, and I remember we recorded with you, and then we recorded with someone else, and we didn't like them as much, but we couldn't remember your name. But you reminded us of Ned Schneebly from School of Rock.
And you went to rock school.
Yeah.
What happened in these rock schools? I never went to one.
No, it was great. To be fair, I think it was better than what it is now, because it was like you get put in a band, or you'd start a band, and then you'd write songs every week, and then at the end of the
so this is loads of kids going somewhere.
Yeah.
With guitars, drums, basses, and
somewhat
an adult.
Yeah.
Like Neil, just sort of organises the chaos and.
Yeah, and then but the thing was, there was always a gig to aim for. That was the thing, and that was really exciting, because especially when you're 14, 15, you get to play Havant Arts Centre, which is like, if it's all
it's Pompey's Wembley.
Parents, yeah, it's a big deal.
Arena, not stadium.
But
I think the rock school, they were making a rock school album, and they got me to record all the rock school bands, and I think that's probably the first time I met you and recorded The Underdogs.
That was it.
And then I think you came back and recorded some more songs with me, and I remember you recorded Bad Romance.
Don't think that was me.
Right, I remember wrong then. That wasn't you.
No.
Well,
I can. Who
are you?
We record? I think we just did our own songs. So we did
probably an Arctic Monkeys song, wasn't
it? We did one that was very much like "She" by Green Day, and I remember you were taking the piss the whole time.
Oh, is it two?
It was basically yeah, near enough, yeah. But yeah, you kept going, right, let's do the guitar part to "She" by Green Day, and it just kind of, it was a Good banter. Great
It's
banter.
that banter that just enamored you with Neil. I think that's what we all get.
This is it. And then beyond that, I can't really remember. It was sort of, I think I got you on Facebook, and then I was just aware of, then you started working at the old blacksmith, or you were already there, but we were aware that you were working at the old blacksmiths. And that was just around the time Ben took it over, I think. I can't remember. I don't know. I feel like we might have recorded just as you took it over, Ben, something like that. Like
I think. What if it was Underdogs?
Yeah.
I don't think I owned it then, but I think I was in the process of buying it.
Yeah.
And then I definitely owned it when City Skies came.
But I think that was it. And then, but it wasn't until like Function Band World started that.
You're forgetting City Skies.
Yeah, City Skies.
My favorite local band of all time.
Yeah. Well, my favorite band I've ever been in. There won't be a band that will top that for me in terms of like creative.
Have you spoken about City Skies?
Young energy. No, I don't think so.
So I knew George from the Underdogs, and then you came back with a new band, and I thought I'll be more Underdogs, more sort of garage punk.
Yeah.
And you had this female singer called Iona who just was an incredible talent.
Yeah. And
you just had this really cool type Paramore type sound going on, and it was just really, really good.
Yeah. It was. We did the EP, and that was to this day like my favorite thing I've ever recorded. And I was 18. Yeah. Nothing's ever topped that, which is fine because it's good. At least I did it. But that band fell apart spectacularly, and I don't even know where three of them are now.
Yeah.
What the basis is in Ohio, But anyway, in a nutshell, Neil has helped me substantially over the years. Just like, right, here's a gig, here's a job.
Don't fuck it up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I will say this was going to be the main thing I was going to say is the ethos I've learned from Neil is just take the fucking gig. Just take the fucking gig. I've learned that more than anything, because there was one gig where it was in February and it was a Tuesday, and I knew I was going to be working at a primary school 9 till 3, and the gig was in London, arrival at 5, and I went, well, I can't do the gig. And you went, just say yes and you'll make it work. If you have to arrive at 6, it's okay. And you're like, it's going to be a horrible day. And it is, but then it's done. And you got loads of sweet, sweet dollar. So, yeah. Anyway.
If there's one man driven by money, it's Neil Thomas Elliott.
Wouldn't work in this business if that was true.
Let's go get scraps. Someone scrounging around for scraps. Yeah. Neil, my best friend.
Oh.
Fuck.
My work wife.
Jesus.
No, George, you're like that estranged cousin that you get on with on a Zoom call once a week.
Yeah.
Not our bastard child.
No.
Yeah.
I'm the child of you two.
Yeah. We've made you who you are.
Yeah. For
Without
better
us,
or for
you're
worse.
nothing. You'd be in Ohio with a baby you didn't want.
It's bad, isn't it? Because what if without you, I could have been better? You ever thought of that? That would be a depressing thought, wouldn't it?
And we've dragged you down to our level.
Yeah.
Stay in Hillsey. Yeah.
Dreams, forget them. You're doing a wedding in Farnborough. Okay?
Exactly. Yeah.
And the groom wants to play your kit.
Yeah.
No, Nick, we worked together at the old Blacksmith Studios. I might have mentioned
Great plug.
We play in 3 wedding bands together. We have been in original bands together, mainly Oxygen Thief. We just sort of spend a lot of time together, really.
Too much?
Too much, sort of like your second wife. More important one. We actually think we go back to a 4th birthday party.
Yeah, we've traced it. We've traced it
back to a 4th birthday party. Then we were in the local brass bands together. Didn't really know each other. Then Paulie B was the glue that then joined us when I moved back from London, and we started doing functions together. Then we set up Decade, then Victoriana, freshman year. I bought the old Blacksmiths when I started working here, and it's been like that ever since.
You became my drum machine.
I was the drum machine that you so desperately needed.
To have a drummer who would play what I asked him to play.
So you are, a producer, mixing engineer here at my studio. You've been here a long time.
Is it your studio?
It's my studio.
Oh, right, cool. I didn't know if
studio.
you'd ever mentioned it. Right, carry on.
No, it's my studio. There's some people go, they think me and Neil co-own it. We don't. I own it all. But Neil is integral to the success of this studio because he's so good and he works so hard, and couldn't do it without him.
I am 100% not a drummer.
Not a drummer. No.
Yet, to quote George, Neil, why are you here?
Well, I think you will add a perspective because whilst you are not a drummer, you've recorded me and George a lot, but you've also recorded hundreds of other drummers. So you have a perspective on drumming from a studio setting. You've worked with drummers of all abilities.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be good to get a bit of a perspective from, as a non-drummer, but who has to produce and work with a lot of drummers, that angle of...
Well, that's just triggered a memory of, like, I was like, why was I never interested in playing drums? Because it was just never like something I was going to do. I literally never had the thought. Like, I've heard you guys talk about when you first thought, yes, drumming is what I want to do. Well, when I was like 13 and had decided bands, it's like guitar. And my first thoughts with drumming was, I need to train my mate up to play drums so he can be in my band because I need a drummer. So did you guys, like, when you first learnt that first basic rock beat, just a boom ta with the hi-hat going, did you just teach yourselves that, or did you have a drum lesson and then you were like, off I go?
I think I actually learnt it at rock school, weirdly.
Right,
because
it'd be the classic first beat.
Well, it was funny because I don't know if I've talked about the reason I actually started playing the drums. I was a guitarist, and then I was in a band that didn't have a drummer. We just had 3 guitarists and a bassist, and we were like, does anyone play drums in this band?
I think I've heard you talk about that.
Yeah, and then someone was like, you have a go, George. And they just did a kick snare with a hi-hat. Yeah, but I think it was like, I was told that, but then from that, you can sort of...
Ben, do you remember
remember
how you learnt that first beat? Was it just...
It was before I had a lesson. Yeah. I was playing guitar in a band with my brother.
So we all start as guitarists.
And when we rehearsed at school, I just always thought, we had a drummer at the time, Chris, and I just thought I'd rather be doing that. Yeah. And so I'd watch him and see what he was doing. But then I was just the music I was listening to, and I had the musical background from trombone and guitar, and I don't even really think I had to sort of learn initially how to play drums. I'd just seen enough of it from school. There was also Jay Scott, who was a couple of years above, who was a really good drummer, who made Miss Henry cry. We've talked about that, with his epic drum solo. So I always thought I liked watching Jay play drums, and then we had Chris in the band. I was like, I think I can do that. I was just more drawn to the drums. I didn't really enjoy playing the guitar in a band. And just from that and starting listening to alternative music, I kind of tap along on my thighs, like when I was in my parents' car, because they'd have stuff on like they'd have stuff that was bands on, Elton John and things, Billy Joel and stuff. And I just remember in the breaks at the rehearsal in, year 7 and 8, I'd just sit at the kit, and I could easily translate what I wanted to do with my limbs, like from my head, and kind of just do it. And then it was like, oh, I think I can do this. Can I have drum lessons? So it was before the lessons. And
so it's like 1996, and Oasis are massive, and I'm just massively into Oasis, and I'm like, I want to be in a band, and I'm gonna play bass or guitar, and I need one of my mates to be a drummer, and Supersonic, boom ta. Boom, boom, ta, classic. So this is the start of my producer head, I suppose. I was like, what's that drummer doing? So he's doing this hi-hat thing, and then he's going boom, ta. So I just, in maths, I remember kind of like you were saying, you tapped on your legs. I was like, can I do that? Can I keep this hi-hat going and have the kick, snare, kick, snare? And I managed to do it. So I was like, okay, if I can do it, then my mate Gazzy Reed can do it, and he can be in my bloody band.
Was it Gazzy Reed? I didn't know this.
So I was like, Gazzy, right?
Shout out Gazzy Reed.
Gazzy Reed, you're playing drums, mate. Okay, so what you got to do is you got to play this beat, mate. Right? And he sort of tilted him, and then he got a drum kit for Christmas. His heart wasn't in it, and we played Imagine, you know, John Lennon Imagine in assembly. And that is a very simple drum beat, just straight. But it's got one drum fill at the beginning.
Yeah.
It goes dun 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 dun. So I just analysed what was going on there. Like, right, Gazzy, you got this one drum fill, and then you just come in with the beat. I was like, I'll nod to you when the drum fill is, and he missed it. And then he just faded the drums in. And then he quit after that and sold his drums. And it wasn't. And then I forced Matt into. I was like, right, Matt, you're going to be my drummer because it's not worked out with Gazzy. His heart's not in it. And Matt bought a drum kit and that converted his garage into a rehearsal room. And then that was it. I had my drummer. But I just thought I just never considered being a drummer myself. Ever. It was always like I need to train my mates up to play drums, so that they can be in my band.
Did you ever wish you were a drummer when you're playing the big old double bass?
I tell you,
this is heavy.
No, because it's interesting because both you guys had moments where you were like, "Oh, I really want to do that," and I didn't. But I do remember in the early days of working at blacksmiths, when I had lots of time to kill, I thought, "Oh, I should just like learn how to play drums. I've got all this time, I've got the drum kits available to me. I can practice in soundproof rooms. Be quite cool." But I was just like, I'm in my early 20s. It's too late. I'm not going to be a good drummer now. Like, it's just a waste of time. Don't bother. So I didn't. But I do love drums. Like my favorite, like I said earlier, like Ben was my drum machine. So I always had pretty good drummers in my bands, but they wouldn't fucking listen to me, or they wouldn't remember what I'd asked them. So I was always thinking about the big picture of the song, like, oh, I've got this song and the drums need to do this here and then do this, and then they'd just play whatever. And he'd be like, oh, this is really frustrating. And then Ben was the first drummer I got to work with where he's like, oh, he's actually listening to what I'm saying and playing what.
Well, this was going to be my the only question I prepared for this. I've never prepared for anything less. When it comes to live drumming, because that's what I'm interested in, what are you looking for? Because obviously you play, a lot of function gigs with a lot of different drummers. Sometimes you never met them, and then you got to play with them. But what are your things as someone who's more...
tempo? So it can just be so frustrating if the drummer is really slow or really fast.
Yeah.
And you can't, that's the thing. That's probably, like you've said before, you guys, like the drums really control that. If a drummer's playing too slow, as a bass player or guitarist, I can't do anything to speed him up.
Yeah.
Other than be like, go big eyes on him.
Yeah.
Fucking speed up.
Sort of the head motion.
And you're sort of playing ahead of the beat to try and get them to pick it up, but they just won't. But too fast is awful as well. Sometimes all drummers do this. Sweet Home Alabama, the guitar solo is quite fiddly, and drummers just play that song so fast. And you're trying to whittle your way around it. Oh, it's too fast. Literally can't do it. Please slow down. Confidence with drummers. Just whatever you do it confidently. Because as soon as you can't hide, like you just can't hide on the drums, can you?
No.
Like you try and hide and it sounds pathetic. It doesn't have beef to it. And yeah, if you get the sense the drummer doesn't know what he's doing or is really unconfident, then I feel like it's the foundation that everything falls apart upon. So confidence, tempos.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Yeah. No, that sounds about right.
Fucking love a crash cymbal at the beginning of a chorus. It blows my mind when people don't hit crash cymbals. Like, didn't have any release.
Yeah.
What? How have you done this? I'm sure there's more things that annoy me about drummers.
Studio setting.
My favourite setting.
So you mentioned, you early doors, you were like, okay, I'm going to pick this friend and tell him to play the drums, and you're analysing what the drums were doing and then translating that. So you didn't have the hankering to be a drummer, but it sounds like you had the hankering to be a producer.
Yeah.
When was that sort of introduction to kind of being behind the desk, and in a studio setting and being like, oh, I really like this and this is what I want to do?
Yeah, my dad bought a 4-track tape recorder home from his work at school. Don't know what he was doing, bringing it home.
Thieving Keith, they called him.
Thieving Keith.
Do you want 4-track? Yeah, I'll get one.
Yeah. So that layering up of sounds, and I had a keyboard, so I'd get like a beat going on the keyboard. But then sort of relating it to drums, I guess I got eMagic, which preceded Logic. So before Logic was called Logic, it was called eMagic, and I got a demo of that, and that's where I could program drums. So it's like, don't need a drummer. I can just program whatever I want. So getting that understanding of what goes into a drum beat and groove and all that sort of thing. And so then it just sort of developed from there. Never went away. Still here 20 years later.
So yeah, I guess, producing is a particular role in the studio. You always have a clear idea of what you want, not just what the drums to do, but the song as well.
This is not, I don't know, do other people not have that?
I think, I don't think I don't think people do.
It's just related to drums. It's like, I always have a pretty good idea what I want the drums to do.
Yeah. And I think as a non-drummer, I think that's quite unique. Yeah. Like, you're not a drummer, but you know what you want the drums to do. And, I produce bands and work with bands, and as a drummer, it kind of makes sense. Like, if I think the drums should do something else or work, but then with guitar, I'm kind of like, I don't really know. Yeah. So I've got some musical ideas, but on a real guitar level of making different guitar parts work and what they should do, like, I've had to sort of work at that. And that comes from more of just a general song thing rather than like a guitar specific thing. But I think you have a distinct, with the whole song as well, but particularly drums, you definitely know what you want. And it's frustrating when, a drummer doesn't hit the crash at the start of a chorus. It's like, that's
mental. That's absolutely, it's insanity.
Route one,
Yeah.
How do you find, as a non-drummer, translating what you want to a drummer?
Getting my message across.
Yeah. How do you do that?
Beatboxing.
Yeah.
So, boom, that sort of thing. Hand movements. But yeah, it can be tricky. I suppose you can reference drum beats in songs, and it's like something like this. Just quite often it's just like, can you do that bit on the ride cymbal? Or I don't. You tell me. Both. I've recorded both of you lots of times.
I mean, we're at a point now where I know what you're going to say before you've even said it.
We are too alive.
We'll do a take, and you'll come on the tour back, and I'll be like, yeah, that bit on the ride, and you're like, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
What about you, George? Because I've recorded you less, but still a good bunch of times.
I was going to say the first time I remember at the old blacksmiths, I remember this is what I was going to say in terms of like, if you're not a drummer but you're able to think of things. I think it's maybe not so much like about having a knowledge of drumming, but like a knowledge of how all the instruments fit together. Because I remember when we were doing a song, I think it was called Hang About, and it was really sort of like mad verse drum beat. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, I was 17 and there was no need for it to be that mental, but it was. And obviously drums were done first. And then you said to everyone else in the band, like, right, you're going to have to strip back your parts because this is all drums. Like, if you're playing, if you're playing what you were going to play, it's like, it'll be too much. I was just going to say that in regards to like, yeah, knowing what to say as a producer, even if you're not a drummer, you go like, well, will this work with that? You know, if it's going to clash with something else. But yeah, no, I've noticed that you know what will sound good, and I guess it's just having a different ear. I remember even with City Skies, you know, there would be things that I'd played in rehearsals, and I was like, this sounds good. And I think when you're younger, you kind of try and play as many notes as possible just because you're like, oh, I have to fill the space and stuff. And I remember actually both of you worked on that EP, and I think you were
I remember
like,
I was sitting in the room with you.
yeah.
While
And you were like,
tracking.
just strip it back. Like I was doing a lot of ghost notes. You're like, don't need the ghost notes. And I was kind of, yeah. And I was like, what if, yeah.
In City Skies, which is big guitars and just big sounding power drums.
Yeah.
That if it's a big chorus, you ain't going to hear those ghost notes.
No, exactly.
They're just saturated underneath everything. So just concentrate on the power.
Yeah.
But the room for the ghost notes would be when it's clean guitars and it's all a bit more stripped out and you can really express yourself. But
exactly.
I remember recording you for Elliot Joseph, the last EP, and that first song, and it was a really difficult song. I think it might have been that Rise Like Lions.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
And it was very Tom based.
Yes.
And I just remember it was a bit of a slog because it just needed producing.
Yeah.
And so we just really had to break it down section by section and go, right, the guitars are doing this. This is the rhythm. So, and I've had it with both of you, Ben as well. Like when I try and make you do a beat that you've never done before, because that's just, the guitar's doing this rhythm and we somehow need to accentuate that on the drums. And you're like, okay, give me a minute. I've just got to get my head round what,
because it's probably something that we've never naturally done. So you're just asking the limbs to do something slightly uncoordinated to our natural thing.
That was the one I remember more than any in terms of me and you recording, Neil. I'm sure you've put Ben through the mill a million times.
I've broken him.
But this one, it was, I remember, because I'll explain what it was in drumming terms. It was like a da 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 da, like with my hands, and then the kick was just on the floor. Fall to the floor, sorry. And then you were like, right, now try and put the kick with the hands. And then you were like, and now try and do it different way, you know?
Yeah.
And it was very much a case of like, do 8 bars of the verse and then stop. And then I think at the end, I said, let's see if I can just play that whole thing all the way through for a laugh. And I couldn't because it was ridiculous. And then, but then that's the weird thing about, recording drums is you make a track that you can't play, and then I had to spend a few weeks learning what I've played, for the live gigs.
It's quite rare that happens, but sometimes it does. Sometimes it just needs that. Sometimes it's like, what you just played's awesome. Like, let's just get a few takes of that and fuck off. But sometimes it just needs to get deep into what's going on and figure out. Like, it's more that you're like, it's not working.
Yeah.
And need to figure out why it's not working.
Yeah.
And then essentially relearn it, which is difficult. And in that moment, you did really well to not lose your shit.
Yeah.
Because people have.
Yeah.
And Ben's very good at that as well. But there's me and Ben I've recorded Ben so many times. There have been times I'm like, he's a bit pissed off with me. I think he needs to go and have a smoke. Because I pushed him to his limit there. We played an Oxygen Thief for years, which is just mental music.
Yeah,
like Barry writes stuff that's just, I've never had to do this before in my life. I can't. Can you remember?
So many syncopations, so many time signature changes, and just real things of. Pushing the sort of coordination and so much going on, and the kick and snare patterns being so integral to the riffs that they have to match, and you can't get away with missing a kick out. You can't get away, and then obviously like double kick things, and obviously switching between toms or ride cymbal, hi hat, all these crashes, and there's definitely moments where like I'm doing like a double kick section, but the China is on the duplets. over like a triplet double kick. So it's you're sort of doing cross rhythms between the hands and the feet, and that's quite like an unnatural thing. But I would say as well, what I think is tricky, especially with recording drums, is the bleed. So you can't just snap in usually to a section. You have to get the run up. So it's not always possible to be like, oh, we'll just go from chorus 1 and punch in, because you need the tom and the cymbal bleed from the previous verse. So sometimes you have to, like, I find that tricky with producing drummers, is getting them to sort of go from the section before to capture the bleed. Whereas if they just start fresh on that section, they can play it. But it's like, you've got to be able to play it, but play it having played the previous section. Neil, I mean, one band springs to mind, won't name them, but what happens when a drummer comes in and does their thing, and you need to change what they're doing for the betterment of the song, but they can't do it? How do you deal with that situation?
Get you in. No. No. You have to judge the personality. So judge the personality and the ability of the drummer, because there's some who would have the ability to change it but aren't willing to, and you just have to be like, okay, cool, I've told you what I thought, but that's cool. But when they don't have the ability, it's very tricky. There's lots of things we can do in post-production, like banging on about a crash cymbal. It's very easy to just insert a crash cymbal in post-production where there needs to be one if they just can't do it at the time. You can add trigger samples and things like that. We can do a lot with timing post-production, but only so much. If they're too out of time, then it's a bit like singing. If a singer's too out of tune, you can tune it so much, but then it just starts sounding like a robot.
What about click? Say if someone can't play to click, what do you do there? What are your little...
Sack off the click.
Really?
There's some really good drummers who can't play to a click. You have to judge what the genre of the music is. So if it's like a punk drummer and he can't play to click, cool, well, it's punk. So it doesn't matter if it speeds up, slow down. But if it's, I don't know, fucking a band, an indie band, but with loads of electronic stuff in where it needs to be to the grid, you can have all the guide tracks already recorded to the click. So they can't. What happens quite often is you've got the whole band playing doing guides, and the drummer's on a room with headphones on, hearing the band and hearing the click, and the drummer's speeding up ahead of the click, so the band just follow. But if you record the band just a guide guitar to the click before doing the drums, that guitar's not going to speed up. So it forces the drummer. You just have to keep saying you're speeding up, and you need to just listen to the click and you listen to the guitar, because they won't speed up. So a lot of it's getting them to listen properly, like have that click super loud in your ears, and don't fill it with bass and guitar, because that will just muddy up the sound.
Well, I do remember when City Skies, when I was 18, and it was the first time I played to click, and there was this really tricky drum part, and I just couldn't keep it in time. And what I was trying to do was trying to keep the hi-hat going as well, and you were like, don't do that, just really focus on the drums. And then it was still tricky, and you were like, okay, take this bit, like to the point where it was like almost the way I teach drums. I'm like, take everything out until we've just got like the root of it. And eventually I think we stripped back the beat, and then it did just work. But it was like, you were like, don't worry about anything else, like we're just going to do this section. And it was really good. I think it's clarity of thought, isn't it? Stripping away what doesn't matter, and then breaking it down and then building it up again. And that's kind of how you learn drums, isn't it? But what's intense about a recording session is you're trying to do that in a very short space of time. But actually, sometimes the drummer just needs to go away and practice. But in the reality of what we do recording, that's not really possible. So then you just have to start coming up with solutions. And worst case, sometimes the solution is the click is not helping us here, it's hindering us, so we just need to sack it off. And me and Ben have both done this, where you sack off the click and then
you don't record to a click at all, but then in post-production you program a click that follows the natural BPM of what the drummer did, and then you've kind of got a grid to work to. But it's complicated. Drums, I think drums are my favorite thing to record because it's the biggest technical challenge. Because as you guys will have learned, like, just drums sound shit recorded. You go in a room with a drummer and it's just intense. It's always surprising how loud it is, and you're just sort of blown away by the intensity of drums. And then you play that through speakers quite quietly, and it's like it just loses all that intensity. Yeah. So the challenge is, how do you recreate that in the recording environment? And there's lots and lots of tricks to do, but it's complicated, and it's sort of an art to learn how to do it, really.
I mentioned this particular band earlier. You started tracking an album with them, so you phoned me at the end of the day, having tracked drums, and you said, "I don't know what I'm going to do."
Yes, right. Yeah, it was quite stressful because it was during the pandemic, so it was we weren't breaking the law. It was legal for us to do this session, and it was quite important to me financially and just for mental health. Of like, right, I'm being allowed to do what I love to do, and this band are coming in to do a whole album, like 12 songs, and you start Monday morning quite buoyed and really like, I'm going to give this everything, and you set up the drums, and then he starts playing, and you're like, oh man, I don't know what to do, like struggling to play to a click, and it's fairly important we do it to a click. What he plays is different every single take. Like
that's annoying, isn't it? That's frustrating.
Yeah.
How different? As in, like, he's
different beat, different cymbals.
Amazing.
But he's all feel.
Right.
So those drummers where he's like, he knows the song, he knows what the guitar riffs are doing, but he's just jamming it, baby, ba 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 ba, and you're like, okay, so if I'm gonna take one positive, it's like he's got feel. Like feel, he knows the songs.
Yeah.
But it's an absolute mess. So things we don't like are, it's different every time. So do I try and break this song down and go, right, what are you going to do in this section? And actually, I think that's what I ended up doing. I go, right, we're just going to focus on the intro. What cymbal are you going to use? Cool. Let's stick to the hi-hat then. One thing's I really struggle with is flamming. Again, different from genre to genre, but power metal, where it's all power and ghost notes aren't particularly important. When the drummer's snare hand comes down at a slightly different time to the hi-hat, so it sounds messy, and that's very hard. There's nothing I can really do in post-production, and it's just luck whether they get it right or not. But essentially, with that drummer, I think I learned, right, we're going to almost take it section by section. But I've just got to let him play and not get too, because the one thing he's got is feel. So I've got to let him feel it. I can't get too nitpicky. And we just have to hope sometimes he doesn't flam and get enough takes. So it was really stressful. But basically, we did fucking 10 takes per song, maybe even more. And then whichever take was the best, I wouldn't do a whole edit of because I didn't have time, but I'd beat detective it, which means put it more in time. So it's like, okay, so now when I track the rest of the album, we've got something that's pretty in time, messy as fuck, but something that's pretty in time to track to. And then actually, in this example, I then got Ben to edit all the drums.
But I remember that phone call. And you were like, I don't know what to do. This is what I've done. But you worry as well about the time it's going to take because you've got a whole album to get through and the time it's going to take. And I think you'd agree. A thought that you had in your head was, I might just have to get Ben to redo it all.
Yeah, it's I've never really had that before where seriously, we might joke.
Yeah, this is a very extreme case.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, I felt really not bad, but it was like coming out, of lockdown and first sort of thing back in the studio, and then you were presented with that to start with. It's like, oh, but yeah, and I edited that album, and I don't know if I've ever edited anything as challenging as that. Like you say, it's flammy, it's different every time. Timing was a mess. Some of the drum fills was like he fell over the drum kit. There was no coherence to anything, but got through the edit, and with your mixing skills and trickery.
Well, I think by the end of tracking, I was like, I'm not 100% certain, but I think within the 12 takes, it's kind of enough there, because it's quite repetitive. So you can nick, he never got verse 1 right, but he did get verse 2 right once.
Yeah. I had
verse 2 and verse 1 are the same. So we can nick, I think Ben will be able to nick from verse 2 and use it in verse 1.
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely sections I was constructing a beat. I was like, he's done the kick and the hi-hat in time there, not flamming. I'm going to take that, and then he's done the hi-hat and snare over there, and I was literally crafting a beat. And then it was like, this drum fill going into the chorus is good, but I've got to use that going from the intro to the verse as well. It was very tough job. And then you listen to the album and the mixing, the trickery we won't go into, but with triggers and just quality mix, it's like it's night and day as to the and I think you even bounced out the unedited and the final mix, so you could just compare, and it's amazing what you did.
And the worst part is that drummer will think that's all him, you know?
Yeah, and that's what you're aiming for, because you don't want the drummer to go, what the this isn't me.
But as in, like, he'll get cocky and be like, oh, yeah, look at how on point I am, you know?
Yeah.
But, send him the raw
he's learned nothing. He has not
exactly.
got better because of that experience.
I told the story where Oxygen Thief tour, I went for a piss and ended up walking out of the hotel room. I just think I'd like to hear it from your perspective of what happened.
Yeah. Oh, we had some lovely old times, didn't we? So we had a lovely old night playing with our friends, Strange Planes, and
go check out our interview with Cy from Strange Planes.
Yeah.
So love that man. And we had a lovely old night out in, well, I don't know, where were we? Nottingham?
Feels like Nottingham.
And on a Thursday night in Nottingham, you just got to get drunk. There's just it's depressing otherwise, isn't it?
Yeah.
The gig was all right.
The gig was all right. I think what worked in our favour, it was one of those nights where we could leave the gear there and the hotel was close by, so you're sort of free. You're not burdened by your equipment or having to travel back, so you can just stay out in the...
They're my favourite. My favourite gigs in original bands are when you're on a tour and there's just no responsibility. And the only thing, you don't have to think about the logistics after the gig. We finish playing, get drunk, stumble back to a hotel room, which is what we did. And not for the first time, me and Ben were sharing a double bed in the Tea Lodge.
Done it many a time.
Yeah, it's fine. And the Strange Planes boys
were fine. Lucky man.
Lovely. Yeah.
Lovely.
We had separate rooms.
Watch a bit of Netflix, wouldn't we, to fall asleep?
Yeah, or Winter Olympics in Hamburg.
Oh, yeah. And then, night Ben, night Neil, roll over. And then I just remember waking up and hearing knock on the door, quite a frantic knock. And I was like, I thought it was in my dream to start with. And then I was like, no, there is someone at the door. No one else has woken up and gone to answer it, so I suppose I will. And then I'm like, I answer it, it's Ben. I'm like, weren't you in bed with me? And you just went, I'm really sorry. I was like, what's going on? I just needed the toilet. Yeah. So, and you'd already been to toilet, hadn't you?
Yeah, so for those who missed it, basically I was drunk. I woke up in the middle of the night, needed a piss. The front door and the bathroom door were next to each other, and I went out, opened the wrong one, and the door shut behind me, and then I was just in the hotel hallway in my pants, desperate for a piss, and I ended up having to walk past reception, and I just made it to the toilet. And then I couldn't really remember what room we were in because I didn't check us in or anything. And then I was thankfully able to remember I think we got a drink at the hotel when we got back, in the bar. And I swear they asked us what room are you in, and someone else said 27. And I've somehow managed to recall that, but I had no idea what room we were in. So I'm like, am I now just going to have to sleep in the hallway?
Imagine that. Imagine.
And I just remembered, and then knocked on the door. You answered. I'm sorry.
Because I thought you were still in bed.
Yeah.
So I was just.
I've got one question about this. Why, when you knew you were in the hallway, why did you not just knock on the door then? Why did you go? I mean, I know you needed a piss, but surely.
I was so desperate.
Really, I would have.
I didn't know where I was. I did for a few seconds. I didn't know where I was.
Yeah.
I was very confused because I thought I should be in the bathroom.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, and then it was just like first thought was I've got to go for a piss, and it crossed my mind. I was like, I might have to go in the stairwell. Like I just don't think I can. I don't know where I am. We're in a random hotel, and I don't know where I am. But I just first port of call is get to a toilet, because it was like, what if I knock and they don't hear me?
Yeah.
Because everyone's asleep, and then I'm just stood there for longer needing to piss.
Tunnel vision. Isn't it?
Tunnel vision. Yeah, just I got to piss straight off.
Well, I told you about last train back from Brighton to Portsmouth once, and I was like, I have to get off because I'm going to piss myself. I don't care. I got off at Worthing, and I was like, I don't care if I have to get a taxi back from Worthing. I can't.
It overrides your brain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Have you had the story on here where you were poorly at a gig, Ben?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Just vomited in the car park and laid down
green,
while
turned green.
Turned green
boy.
and big old sick. Yeah. I think we're going back to that venue next year. Yeah.
Do you remember
maybe I'll be sick again.
Remember that Decade gig where I was really poorly and
you actually had to run off stage while we were playing.
Yeah.
To go and be sick, and we had Harry singing, so he just picked up your guitar and we did get lucky without you.
Good old Harry.
Yeah. I remember being sick and being like, that's some sick bass. Where's that coming from? I'll just stay here.
Final question then. Who's your favourite delivery company?
I feel like I'm not as passionate about this.
He's heard this.
Well, get passionate.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're all about music and producing. Yeah. Priorities, mate. Yeah.
I don't order anything. I haven't got any money left to order. It's my wife. Just Amazon every day. Another one? What's this box? What's this one? Yeah, give me the options and I'll just see.
Right.
If I
DPD?
I respect DPD. Is that acceptable?
Yodel?
Yeah.
Hermes/Every?
Feels like it's shit.
FedEx?
Rare.
Royal Mail?
I've got an emotional attachment to.
What's the other one that begins with D?
Is Amazon in there?
Amazon's borderline because
Weird,
they have their own delivery system, but it's
it's
not a third party. It's the direct from the sale. What's the other one that begins with D? DHL. That's another one.
Right, yeah.
Can we hear the emotional attachment to Royal Mail before we?
Well, it's just the OG, and I was a postman for.
How have we not spoken about this? I didn't.
Yeah. So finished college.
It's all right. You don't have to rush this story. This is my favorite bit.
Finished college and I'd done music and music technology.
Yeah.
Didn't know what to do in my life because that's not a career, is it? And I just took a gap.
Direct quote from your wife.
Yeah.
Not a career, is it?
Is it? Took a gap year, did some job, just to give myself time, George. Figure out what the hell I was doing with my life. Because all my friends seemed to have a clear idea. Like, Gazzy Reed, who'd sacked off the drumming years ago, he's gone to Oxford to do maths. And, that's not me. That's not my path. So, ended up at Royal Mail and it was fucking depressing.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean,
what time did you have to wake up? Yeah.
Get up at 4 a.m. just go straight in for a 5 a.m. start, and you're a temp, so you haven't got your own round. You're just filling in whatever round, and so you go to your post. You're like, Neil, you're on this today. Oh, this is a shit one. Oh, you're like, I'm in Gosport, and you just literally have to get the mail, and you have to essentially sort it in order. When you get out on your round, then you've got this ridiculously heavy bag. Get dropped off. You just bumble your way around. It takes you ages. Was cool. You could listen to music though, so that was good. I think I had a CD player in my pocket.
Got to keep that level, baby.
Got to keep that.
There's a certain age of people who don't understand keeping that Discman flat and level.
Mini disc players were about, but I didn't have one. But yeah, like I was listening to Tool and I was analysing what the drums were doing, all that sort of stuff. So
That's
anyway,
good.
and then you'd finish the round about 1 p.m.
Yeah.
2 p.m. because you're fucking slow because you don't know where anything is and you're fucking up everything. And it's pissing down with rain, and then you have to make a call to get picked up, and then they might not come for an hour, and then they turn up.
Fuck that.
And then you eventually have finished your working day, 3 p.m., and you're absolutely shattered. So you get home and you just don't do anything. And then you sort of push it to 10 p.m. because I've got to get up at 4. And that's 6 days a week.
Damn.
Really quite a depressing time in my life, actually. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Has it got better?
But what it did focus me on was, right, I want to work in music and I'm going to make this happen. I'm not doing this for the rest of my life. This is mental. So when I started university, I was like, I'm going to go to university and do a music technology degree because that's the only step I can see to getting into becoming a raw recording engineer.
Yeah.
And then really, like, overworked really. I was a bit slack at college. And then when I got to university, I was like, fucking focus, boy, because this is the rest of your life. So it was valuable.
No, definitely. You need to do a shit job to learn.
When did you boys go, I'm going to work in music?
Don't know. Am I even working in music?
I think I was year 8 when it was revealed to me that it was an option. A music teacher at secondary school, this was obviously trombone related, but she was like, you're pretty good at the trombone, you should be aiming to go to music college because you could probably then go on and be a musician. And I was like, oh, that's a job, is it? And she was like, yeah. I was like, okay, that's the goal then. To the point where I was like, okay, that's my goal then, music college, so I'll need to have music A level. Where's the
It's that famous sneeze.
It's fucking the sneezes. Oh my god, it's the loudest sneezes. Proper dad sneezes. This wheezy little sinus boy. You need to go to a good college, get A level music. And so actually in year 8, that's when I went to sixth form open evenings, and they were like, "You're a bit young," and I was like, "I know what I want." So,
So you were young.
Yeah, I was pretty young.
I knew I loved music by year 8, but I just wasn't. I was just like, oh well, I'll do music at school.
Yeah,
and I love it, but and then just on to college, but it just wasn't anything else I wanted to do.
Yeah,
I was passionate about, so kept it going.
Kept it going.
George,
keep the ball rolling, baby. Me, God, I don't know. I just sort of like things just keep going, and it's just.
Yeah, but when you finished,
I don't know. I can't even think because I don't think I had a year 8. Someone tells me you could do this as a job.
No, but you had to make your. Did you do music GCSE?
Yeah, I did it at college.
So you had to choose.
Oh
that.
yeah, I did. Yeah, but I think every
because you didn't want to do drama.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was like I don't want to do drama or PE, and I play drums, so I do music GCSE.
We had to do PE.
Did you?
Yeah, GCSE.
That seems.
Our school got like lottery funding to be a sports academy, to be like so it's like, oh, got to do PE.
Yeah, no, but beyond that, I don't know. I think I just kept doing it at places, education, because I enjoyed it. Even now, I'm still like, I still just feel like I just sort of, I don't know, like just play drums and just because I prefer doing that than kitchen portering. I don't know. It's like
I mean, they're not the only two jobs.
no,
but this
My
is
life
this
it
is the similarity is that I have friends who were
Good.
in year 8,
I thought that was
year
it.
9, where
Just showing off. I've got friends.
I have friends, all right. So
come at me. Yeah, I've got friends.
Yeah.
I've got hair too.
I've got a
there
long
you
list
go.
of ex-drummers. People are. Oh, he's gone for the hair, has he? Bless.
No, but I had friends who had clear career paths thought out, and they were thinking about career and money.
Yeah.
And you joked about me caring about money at the beginning, but I really don't. It's the reason I fucking work in this stupid industry, that I never cared about money.
No.
And the only reason I care about money now is because I've got loads of children and I've got to sustain this life.
Well, that's what I meant. I didn't mean you were money hungry.
I know.
It was you can't just dismiss a gig because it might be a bit tricky.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is your attitude, and this is what's infectious, and I think very important for younger people is, and you say this all the time, you got to be hungry. You got to be hungry to do this. You can't just relax. And it is that thing, like, okay, we've had it recently. Okay, there's potential for a gig. Okay, well, we've got a studio session in the day. It's very easy to just go, we just won't do the gig. But you got to go, okay, how can we make this work? How do we? Because that money is, we all have our different priorities for our money, and your situation is supporting your family, so you can't just easily dismiss a potential gig that can make a big difference in your monthly revenue. And you're very good at going, don't worry about that, you can make this work, because you'll regret it if you don't, because there's some money there to be made.
And I know we joke about function bands and all that, but it's like I enjoy it. Like if you just compare it to my Royal Mail job, it's like it's easy. The day flies by. I get to hang out with my mates. I play some songs. Sometimes it's fun playing the songs. Sometimes it's not, and I get paid really well to do it. So I got to keep that going, boy, because otherwise I'm going to end up in an office job or Royal Mail or whatever. And the same with recording. It's like I'm gonna work so hard on this very average band because I have to continually keep proving myself, and I want to keep doing it. So I'm super passionate about it.
Yeah,
that's the key to it, is the passion for it, really.
Any advice for drummers who are heading into the studio as a producer? Just anything you'd recommend they think about before coming in?
Practice playing to a click. Easy to get a click on your phone and put headphones on and just practice that. Don't want the first time you just try and play to a click in the studio when you got the pressure of all your bandmates and some producer. So just practice playing to a click. It will make you a better drummer. Take pride in your kit, and get some new drum skins, learn how to tune the drums, make the drums sound great. You're the one who's going to make the drums sound great. So I just think a lot of drummers don't think about that. Don't think about drum skins and how you hit the drums. Like this different, every drummer sounds different, don't they? Playing the same kit. So what's your sound going to be? You're going to be a little tapper, or you're going to hit that drum, make those drums sound good by the way you hit them.
Sound advice. I'm going to do a little shout out. We have, if you want to hear more from me and Neil about our studio adventures and more from the behind the desk, we do have another podcast called the Mixforge Podcast. You can find it wherever you get your pods, and also on oldblacksmiths.com. And me and Neil just chat shit, but about studio stuff. This is about drum stuff. We blurred the lines a bit today, but me and Neil talk about our exploits at the Old Blacksmiths, so you can go and find that. Anything you want to plug, Neil?
My book.
Mixing Parenting Hell.
Nah.
How to produce songs with 3 children crying in the background.
No, just the blacksmiths, really. Come and record at the blacksmiths. We'll have fun. And
Neil's a top producer, top mix engineer. He'll sort you out. He'll tell you what to play. And it'll be
in a nice way. In a nice way.
He's very nice. Very nice.
And if you don't want to play it, that's fine.
Yeah. And if you go to oldblacksmiths.com, there's a big show reel on there, and there's a lot of mine and Neil's stuff on there that you can go and listen and hear how good he is. And hear how shit mine are. Tends to be more Neil stuff on there.
You two have never been this kind to me in real life. What is going on? Is this a prank?
Stitcher.
We think you're a wanker. We hate you. We don't play in your bands anymore. So fuck off. That's a shame.
I was going to say you should get me on the Mix Forge, and we could just have this exact same conversation.
Yeah. What's the angle?
Right. No, and then you and Neil need to have a podcast.
Yeah.
What would your podcast be about?
I don't even know.
The angle be you working with you.
Yeah.
And then get me on as someone who despises anyone under the age of 20.
Should not be anywhere near the youths.
Yeah.
And we can complete the podcast triumvirate.
Hello.
Triptych.
That was a good word.
Thank you very much. Well, we'll leave it there. Thanks for coming on, Nelly.
Pleasure.
Finally get you on. I will no doubt I'll see you on Saturday for a gig.
Yeah, you will. George, when am I going to see you next?
October the 15th, I guess.
Oh, yes.
Yay.
Lovely little last minute gig.
Back on the bass, Georgie.
Love it.
Georgie on the bass.
Anyway, thanks for coming on, mate. I'll see you soon.
Boys. I'll say bye.
See you later. Bye.
Bye. Cheers, boys.
There we go.
Lovely lads.
You enjoyed that. Lovely lads.
Yeah. Good insights into what a producer wants from a drummer.
It was weird interviewing him because I know him so well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of these interviews is the first time you're talking to them. You know what I mean? Pretty much every interview, or at least for that long. But Neil, I know him quite well.
Had to take the friend hat off and put on the podcast hat.
Exactly.
That sort of thing. What are you doing with the rest of your time in France then?
Good question. I think
La piscine? La bibliothèque?
Good. That's good. I think we're seeing someone who lives down the road in a bit. But I say down the road, it's a neighbour. It's a 15-minute drive. That's how remote and far apart everything is. And then beyond that, I don't know. If the weather's good tomorrow, we might go to some lakes because we're up in the mountains. We've got the rental car and we paid for fuel.
What is the car?
Oh, it's
a
good.
Renault?
It's a Fiat 500, which is perfect. And I'll tell you why.
The little
it's
one.
Small. Yeah, and I don't have to worry about... Because it's so weird being on the other side of the road. Like, you're kind of going, how close am I to the curb? Whereas if you're in this, it's fine. But it's a lot to get used to very quickly.
I've driven one of them ones, and it's too small for me.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
It's like I'm playing Mario Kart.
Yeah, well, I think that's what I quite like about it. I have thought if I didn't need to lug a drum kit everywhere,
that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah,
I'd love one. I would have one, but
it's definitely cars you have to rule out because it's like I can't fit a drum kit in here.
No, exactly.
But
it's a shame.
I've had my car for nearly 10 years, so
served you
Sally
well.
Keeps on riding, baby.
This is it. But I will say, if there's ever a way to learn how to drive a car, it's immediately leaving an airport and having to drive around the center of Toulouse. That was fucking scary. Coming off a plane and being like, right, let's relearn how to drive. But once you're in the remote bit, it's fine. No one lives around here. What are you doing rest of the week?
I've got some more recording sessions. Got a Victoriana gig on Saturday, the last gig of the year for Victoriana as it stands. And then sort of just got a bit of mixing to do, and then I'm getting ready for my holiday.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, now I need to think about it. Right. Sun cream, Euros. That's it. But got to think about that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So just sort of mentally winding down. And
when are you leaving?
Thursday the 6th.
Oh, okay.
So next week.
Yeah.
Next
when
week.
the podcast drops.
And it'll be ready to drop. On that plane. Yum, 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 yum. But
fantastic.
Yeah. So cool. Have a good rest of your week in France, mate.
Thank you. Yes.
And I'll see you next week.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Drum and Drummer. You can find us on Instagram at Drum and Drummer Podcast. And you can send us an email to drumanddrummerpod@gmail.com. Remember, just pick up the sticks and twat it.